Chest up, shoulders back. Welcome to Revival Fitness, everybody, your home for gains and brains. And I'm a little bit groggy, as you can probably tell, guys. I didn't get much sleep last night because I was traveling early this morning here, undisclosed location, the Elite FTS Swiss Conference 2022. I've already ran into Juji Mufu here. I met Jim Wendler, Matt Wenning, a lot more people coming up tomorrow too. This has been a pretty interesting weekend so far, but today we're going to talk about something that's going to get a good amount of clicks just based on the name alone, and it is about Andrew Tate, who, as far as I know, is still banned off of pretty much every platform. People have asked me to react to him before, and I'm not really that familiar with a lot of his content, I guess, self-improvement-wise. I've seen some clips of it. A lot of it's been very short, so it's hard to really take out of context to fully know what he's saying. He hasn't struck me as some evil, terrible person from what I can tell, based on the things I've seen. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of overreaction or whatever, but we're going to talk about in this video, since this is a fitness channel, I saw that he commented some things about bodybuilding, and I've seen some shorts about it, and I found two clips we're going to react to here today. And you guys might be a bit surprised at the position I take in response to what he says. Maybe you won't be, I'm not really sure. But the first clip I have of him, we're going to touch on this one just briefly. He mentions this about bodybuilders, basically saying how they wish they were fighters and that a lot of them just kind of put on that muscle more of an act, kind of like something only for show. So here's this clip.
Bodybuilders are losers. The reason bodybuilders are losers is not because bodybuilding is easy. Bodybuilding is actually extremely hard. The reason bodybuilders are losers is because they don't want to be bodybuilders. Every bodybuilder I've ever met wants to be a fighter, but they haven't got the balls to be a fighter. So instead they think, well, I want to look as mean as possible. And then they end up bodybuilding. All their time and effort and energy into the gym to try and make sure no one ever starts a fight on them because they're absolute. All bodybuilders are complete cowards. And that's the reality. Andrew Tate said so. Any bodybuilder on here who disagrees with me, if you really want to make a point of it, let's get in the cage. You and me. And I'll whoop your ass.
So I understand the point he's making there. Right, there's a lot of guys who get into lifting heavy, especially these guys that go really heavy into juice and stuff. A lot of that does come from a place of insecurity oftentimes. Some bodybuilders even will admit to this in interviews. I mean, they'll say like verbatim, like, yeah, it's like my shield, I was bullied, all this other stuff, right? So that, of course, is part of it. But there's plenty of people that get into fighting for the same reasons. I don't know if I would say that bodybuilders wish they were fighters. I don't really wish I was a fighter per se. I'm not really a big fan of like willingly getting hit in the face. People that do hardcore fighting, seriously, like UFC, boxing, all this stuff, those people are different, man. Like, you have to have a different level mentally to be able to do that over and over. And you can say the same about pro bodybuilding too, man, right? You know, like this insane dieting, all the gear you have to take, all this other stuff. So if you want to get to the top of any field, really, you do have to have kind of a next level mentally you have to tap into to do that. I get what he's saying roughly, but, you know, he's kind of exaggerating, which, yeah, that's part of being on social media and YouTube also. You know, exaggerating short clips, you rile people up. And you got to give the guy credit, it totally worked. But now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. The quote where Tate says that bodybuilding is G-A-Y. I don't know if I want to say it verbatim from my own mouth, because you know how finicky YouTube gets, but here is the clip I found of that.
Bodybuilding's gay. I'm just going to say it. Bodybuilding's gay. Bodybuilding is a beauty.
Shut up, bitch!
So I wasn't able to find the full clip of this because, of course, the one I found, they have to put over the stupid zyzz music. That's a whole nother video I could talk about, how people talk about zyzz like he's some revolutionary, iconic figure. It's like the guy overdosed on drugs at, what, 22 years old? But we heard what Tate said. The crux of this comment is that bodybuilding is sus, and he's right. Maybe you guys weren't expecting me to say that or go along with that, but he is not mistaken, guys. Now, that doesn't mean that every single bodybuilder is gay. I'm not going to be able to keep avoiding saying that word. However, the act of bodybuilding itself, once again, competitive bodybuilding, you see a lot of people, I've gone to people for this too, that old short I made, like you're not an athlete just because you lift. I don't believe in the concept of like recreational bodybuilding. I know that's a controversial thing to say, but it's like somebody who would say like, well, I'm like a recreational power lifter. It's like, yeah, I do the squat, bench, and deadlift, and I max them and test my maxes all the time. It's like, so why don't you compete? I just don't want to. Well, then you're just somebody who does the power lifts. People online say I'm a hybrid athlete and they just lift and run in the same week. But it's like bodybuilding is an activity. It's a competitive activity. And you heard the quote that Tate said, and he's right again. You got to give him credit. He's completely right here. It is a beauty pageant. That's what it is. And I've mentioned this in videos before, guys. It's totally subjective. Bodybuilding fanboys get very butthurt, it's kind of fitting for this, over this conversation, but there's nothing objective about bodybuilding at all. I mean, the poses, I guess, are objective because everybody kind of has their own rendition of the same pose, but it's all a panel of judges, right? They could change their mind at any time, and we can even see over the past number of years, all these new divisions come up, and every year they basically become what they wanted to not be. It's like, oh, let's start men's physique, the board shorts division. Look at men's physique 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Look at it now. The guys are way bigger. Like the classic physique guys of 5 years ago, that's the size that the board shorts division guys are now. And then you can look at the 212 division. It's like the intermediary between classic physique and open bodybuilding. They start the 212. All these guys jump up from classic to 212. Then 2 years later, they're in open bodybuilding. Right, these guys just keep getting so big and so big. They start these categories to sort of make these guys look somewhat normal, not have to do so much gear to get to that size, and then they just get so big that they just keep upping the categories. And you'll hear competitors complain about this too. They'll say like, oh, well, last year they wanted this, now they say this, and these guys go up and down in size and all this other stuff. They have to always kind of manipulate their variables to appease these judges who, simply put, well, again, it's completely subjective. They can decide whatever they want to be the look that they want for that show. It's that simple. It's not like a legitimate sport where it's like, okay, you cross the goal line, 6 points. Football goes through the goal post, 3 points. You put the ball in the net in football or soccer, 1 point. Hockey, puck in net, 1 point. Basketball, 3-point shot. That's all tangible stuff. No matter who's on the court or field, who does it, what time of the game, those are all the same amount of points every single time. Bodybuilding points, the scorecard is just judges like, that guy, give him 5 points. Like, it's completely irrelevant. It's not anything like concrete or cement. Once again, it's subjective. But a recent article came out, I forget, Washington Post, or I think it was one of these big publications. It was about women's bodybuilding, though. I think his name was J.M. Mannion, or he's one of the high-up guys in the NPC, which is like the amateur division. I think it oversees the IFBB, the National Physique Committee. I think they're pretty much intertwined. But stories came out about women competitors saying like, oh, if you sleep with the judge, you get your pro card, they'll adjust the rankings, all this other stuff. They're being like sexually exploited, so to speak. That's a real thing in bodybuilding, guys. Once again, I know a lot of you don't think that's what's happening. You think it's all just, oh, he just worked this hard and X, Y, and Z and he did it. I'm not downplaying anybody's hard work. But if you think there's not shady things going on behind the scenes and politics and all this other stuff, especially like sexual-wise, it's like, you know, favors under the table, wink, wink, that's completely happening, right? If you guys think that's not happening, you need to simply wake up. I don't know what else to tell you. And if this video wasn't already weird enough, it's going to get even weirder, because I remember listening to Jason Blaha, of all people. Yeah, this is weird now, isn't it? I remember him talking about this years ago, and he was right. He used to talk about how bodybuilding has a very big G for P, which means gay for pay, subculture in it, and he was correct. Whenever I was younger and found his channel, I really was like, I don't know about that, but I can tell you guys, after years of working in gyms, I did my own show this summer. You meet bodybuilders. You can find evidence of this online too, man. The Kai Green video. You can find videos of Matt Ogus. There's other guys too, right? Like, this is not something that is a conspiracy theory. There's a lot of G for P, so to speak, not only in the fitness space, but especially bodybuilding. Right, guys, think about it. Some of these guys, the amount of stuff they're taking, that's not cheap, right? Bodybuilding does not pay that well, especially if you're a rising competitor without a whole big social media following or sponsors. If you're just working a normal 9 to 5 and you have thousands of dollars worth of gear to pay for every month, you got to do what you got to do, I guess, right? So when you take all these factors into account, and then not even to talk about the obvious thing, right? The act of bodybuilding itself. What is it? I mean, guys, I love when people like to deny this too, right? Again, it's not to say that everybody who competes is gay or anything like that, but just the visual of it. A bunch of muscled up men on a stage, clean shaven, oiled up, in underwear, flexing muscles. And then guys act surprised when it's like, how come I'm attracting men and not women? It's like, you're surprised? Like, is there not obviously a target market or at least a significant market share of who's going to watch that activity? Does that really surprise you guys? And any of you guys, if you've played sports before, if you've been in wrestling, baseball, especially American football locker rooms, you know what happens, right? There's all kind of sus vibes. Guys are hitting each other on the ass all the time. A lot of sus jokes that get said so many times, it's like, okay, is this a joke at this point? Even frat culture, right? Any guy who's been in a frat or been around frats, those guys do nothing but act sus with each other all day long. Bodybuilding, at least cosmetically speaking, on the visual side, I don't know how you could argue that it's not visually suspect, because it is. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. It just is the activity. I'm sure a lot of you are going to get mad at that. I know a lot of you probably don't like him, or some of you do. Well, he's a very polarizing guy, which again is part of his plan. And if you're into competitive bodybuilding or even just kind of gym culture in general, you know, a bunch of guys posing and flexing in the mirror together shirtless, right? You got to own what it is, dude. You can't just pretend like, oh no, it's not that. It's like, no, it's just part of the activity. It's building and admiring the body, which is going to bring upon that aspect of it. I guess it is what it is. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to drop your thoughts on this matter down below. Thank you as always to the Patreon supporters and the channel members for your continued support of this channel. Hit me up in the links down below as well to save money and to get online coaching, a custom program, or a consultation to get your own training in order. And I will catch you guys next time.